explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation. Hello and welcome. I'm Ananya Datta and I'm back with another edition of Race to Power. Here's what's coming up in the next 30 minutes. And those are some of the shots coming in live from Chicago, where Democrats are all set to nominate Kamala Harris for president. While this looks calm and quiet, at least for the time being, just streets away from this, protests have broken out. And with the interim government well settled in Bangladesh and streets comparatively calm, when can we expect elections is the question. Mohammad Yunus was asked the same question. We get you his answer. In a few hours from now, the Democratic National Convention will begin in Chicago, and the woman and man of the hour, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, have reached the city. But as Democrats rejoice, protesters are outside chanting. The Democratic National Convention is tasting a similar wrath to one in 1968, when protests against the US's involvement in Vietnam War brought people on the streets. About 10,000 people who were against the war clashed with the police. If that was Vietnam, today it is Gaza.
I think that the Democrats should have to earn our votes. I think that we shouldn't just give them away automatically because they're not Trump. I think their policies are really similar. I'm here hoping that they'll sign an arms embargo to Israel, even though I doubt it, because ultimately both parties work for AIPAC.
10 months of genocide is 10 months too long. It's a bitter shame that we consider ourselves the nation of freedom of the world and the liberators of the world when we're the ones supporting this genocide. It's so sad. Our tax dollars are being used to kill children, women, elderly, men, innocent civilians, 2 million displaced people, millions of destroyed homes. Enough is enough.
Police, including the U.S. Secret Service, have set up an extensive security perimeter around the convention area at the United Center. Access is controlled via credentials, and police have been training ahead of the protests. And apart from those protesters, thousands of delegates and supporters have already reached Chicago and are set to be in a party mood, as Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will be seen together to officially hop on the road to the White House. Here's how the next 4 days are looking in Chicago.
This year's convention is taking place at the United Center Arena in Chicago from Monday 19th August to Thursday 22nd August. More than 4,000 delegates will convene, but it will look slightly different from other years, as the Democratic Party has already officially nominated both Harris and Walz through a virtual roll call. President Joe Biden, along with First Lady, will headline the convention on the first night. The crowd will also hear from First Lady Jill Biden, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, Hillary Clinton, and other Democratic leaders. Day 2 will see Democrats' favorite, former President Barack Obama, take the stage. His theme is expected to be a bold vision for the future. Harris's husband, Douglas Emhoff, is also going to address the convention. Then on Wednesday, the stage will be set for vice presidential pick Tim Walz. He will first be nominated officially and then will address the crowd. Reports suggest former President Bill Clinton and former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi might also join him. The convention will conclude with presidential pick Kamala Harris. She is expected to formally accept the presidential nomination and give her speech on the final night dedicated for the future. Some A-listers are also set to grace the occasion. Among the big names are singer and songwriter John Legend, actress, writer and comedian Mindy Kaling, actress Julia Louis-Dreyfus, also American actor and singer Billy Porter. The enthusiasm marks a major turnaround from mid-July, when George Clooney and other frustrated stars publicly called for President Joe Biden to exit the race. Some had even threatened to withhold campaign contributions to the party. As usual, major TV networks will bring live coverage. But for the first time ever, the convention plans to offer vertical streams of the event on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. This will boost viewership from the first time and young voters, a bloc that usually stays away from conventions and debates. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And to take this further, we are being joined by Peter Kuznick, Professor of History at American University from Washington, D.C. Professor Kuznick, good to see you as always. Let me come to you with the latest national polling we have. Kamala Harris is leading at 49%, Donald Trump is at 45%. There's a 4% difference. I want to ask you, can this 4% be made or broken in this DNC?
Well, actually, even more significant is that the latest polling shows Kamala Harris up by 4% in the major swing states. And she now is also leading in North Carolina and Arizona. So she has a clear path to victory. And if we watch what Trump's been saying lately, he seems more and more desperate. He's off message. He's not talking about policy. He's making personal ad hominem attacks against her, and they're falling flat. And so I see now with the convention and with the way the campaign is going, Harris is likely to actually increase her lead. And so that's going to make Trump more desperate. And we know the more desperate that Trump feels, the more he acts out in seemingly illogical and offensive ways.
Professor, then would you not agree with those people who are assessing that this is just Kamala Harris's honeymoon period?
We don't know how long the honeymoon period is going to last. It's lasted for the past month, and it's got to last for another few months. So it could be a honeymoon that lasts until the election. And if that's the case, then Harris will win handily.
Absolutely. I understand your point because just 80 days to go for elections. But one of the criticisms coming this way is also that Democrats will be divided when it comes to economy, when it comes to the Israel-Gaza war. We know what's happening outside the United Center in Chicago.
Especially around the Israel-Gaza war, because Biden has been the one providing 70% of the arms that the Israelis have been using to slaughter the Palestinians. And so that does not sit well with many Americans. It certainly doesn't sit well with younger Americans and people of color. Now, Harris has tried to subtly differentiate herself from Biden. Her comments have been much more sympathetic to the Palestinians than Biden's have to the victims in Gaza. So there's going to be a protest, and it's going to be inside the convention with the delegates, and it's going to be outside the convention in the streets, in some ways similar to what we saw back in 1968. And I was there in 1968 in Chicago. I'm old enough to remember what happened there. So this is a very important one. And there was also a very important convention in Chicago in 1944, in which Harry Truman got the nomination, despite the fact that 65% of Americans, when they were polled, said they wanted Henry Wallace as vice president. Only 2% said they wanted Truman. So we've got a long history of contentious conventions in Chicago. This is going to be in that tradition.
All right, Professor, very quickly, since you mentioned the war in Gaza, I understand that Kamala Harris has been more sympathetic when it comes to, in comparison to in comparison to Joe Biden at least. But do you think being sympathetic when you're on the presidential race is enough, given that experts are saying that there is not going to be any major change when it comes to actual policy?
I don't think it's enough, and that's why the people there are protesting. They want minimally not only support for the ceasefire, which is already happening, they want the U.S. to stop providing arms to Israel while this slaughter continues. Many of them see this not only as a slaughter, but as actual genocide. The United States has laws on the book, the Leahy Act, for example, which would force the United States to stop providing those arms to a country that's committing war crimes and this kind of slaughter. However, the Biden administration has not gone along with that. That is one of Harris's main vulnerabilities. I saw it with my students. The younger generation does not accept this kind of moral double standard that the United States is employing.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for getting us all those insights from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Now, as the highly speculated DNC kicks off, here's what the supporters gathering at the Windy City and rallying in other states have to say.
Very excited for this week. I'm from North Dakota, so Minnesota and Governor Walz as the vice president has been very exciting for us in the Midwest, as well as the potential first woman president of the United States of America. I am beyond excited for this week of a joy fest.
I just feel like everybody's ready. It shouldn't matter if you're a man or a woman and what your race is. I think she's the best candidate for the job and that she'll put our country first.
I want to hear about, first of all, bringing both parties together. We've got to mend. Our country is in bad shape, and we need to mend. Black, white, Republican, it doesn't matter the party. I want her to help us to come together.
I love her. I am so glad to see a presidential nominee who is youthful and joyful, and I think that reflects right back onto the Democrats, and I am so excited to be able to vote for her. My first time voting in a presidential election, and I could not be happier. She's half Indian, and I come from Indian immigrants. My parents are Indian immigrants.
Some of my friends who I've been trying to get engaged in this election, they're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to vote, but they're going beyond saying I'm going to vote. Put me to work. I have gotten calls from Michigan, Ohio, California. I'm like, we don't even work in California. And California and Georgia. And what I can tell you is that there's a certain kind of momentum right now. And I hope the Democratic Party actually taps into that and sustains that. And that it's really not just about people voting. People are saying they're ready to get to work.
Let's shift focus now. Days after Sheikh Hasina was ousted from Bangladesh, interim government chief Mohammad Yunus has not yet given a timeline for the fresh elections in the country. While promising free and fair elections, the leader stopped short of providing a time frame for polls in the protest-ravaged country and instead said that he has the quote-unquote mandate of carrying out vital reforms across the country. The Nobel laureate accused deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of destroying every institution of the country in her efforts to stay in power. The political landscape of Bangladesh witnessed a dramatic turn of events when a student protest against quotas in government jobs turned into a nationwide unrest, triggering violence and instability. The massive protest pushed Hasina to resign and flee the country just 7 months after she returned to power. That was in January this year, following elections that were boycotted by the opposition over claims that polls were not free, neither fair. Bangladesh's constitution calls for elections to be held within 90 days of a prime minister stepping down. In the country's political parties, even the Awami League, have called for early elections. However, the de facto head of the government has now hinted at delayed elections, promising polls once vital reforms have been carried out. Now, 3 weeks after elections were held in Venezuela, the political heat is yet to die down. The opposition and its supporters across the world have taken to the streets in a fresh wave of protests against Nicolas Maduro's re-election, calling on the incumbent leader to step down immediately.
The voice of the people and the decision of the people is respected. And that is what it means to collect. Let the world and everyone inside Venezuela recognize that the elected president of Venezuela is Edmundo Gonzalez.
How are we feeling? Frustrated. How we say in Venezuela, we're arrecho because it's not possible that the will of people, the will of the Venezuelans is violated this way.
I hope for Maduro to recognize his defeat and hand over the power peacefully. What I think will happen is that the dictatorship will get harder. We all need to unite against the dictatorship and show that good people are the majority.
Contra de la dictadura.
Ahead of the crucial presidential elections in Sri Lanka, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has called for deepening ties with India. And this statement comes as part of his broader strategy to strengthen bilateral relations with the country. Virtually addressing the head of state session of the third Voice of Global South Summit held under the theme An Empowered Global South for a Sustainable Future, Wickremesinghe outlined key areas for potential growth, including increased trade and investment, as well as collaborative efforts in maritime security and regional stability. The move comes at a time as Sri Lanka navigates economic turmoil, and analysts suggest closer ties with India could provide significant benefits for both nations, particularly in strengthening economic resilience as well as regional influence. And as the South Asian country looks to bolster its strategic and economic partnership, the spotlight is on how these diplomatic efforts will unfold in the coming months after Sri Lanka elects its next president on September 21st. The incumbent Wickremesinghe is seeking another term in office. Our correspondent Dasunia Thauda has more on this from Colombo.
Sri Lanka continues to see India as an all-important ally, especially given how India extended financial support and assurance during the country's economic crisis back in 2022. This also goes to show that the ties between the two nations are only expected to bolster and foster in the coming few years and decades, regardless of who is at the helm here at the island nation. Reporting for WION World is one from Colombo. I'm Dasmia Thada.
Let's go across the United Kingdom now. The ruling party is looking to make massive strides in the early days of governance. After a sweeping electoral mandate in the July elections, the Labour Party is set to undo a key law passed by the Conservatives back in 2017. Now, the government is set to scrap the Trade Union Act, making it easier for unions to initiate industrial action and call a legal strike. According to reports, the Starmer-led government will reverse the Tory Act as part of its plan to overhaul labour union laws in the country. The Trade Union Act, passed by the Conservatives, set a higher threshold for union strikes. The provisions made it mandatory for half of an industry's registered members to agree to a legal strike and 40% in some industries. The then government called it a move to ensure quote-unquote clear and positive democratic mandate for industrial action. However, the Labour Party slammed the law as an attack on the right to carry out strikes. Starmer's party is expected to repeal the law within its first 100 days in office, and reports further reveal that Labour ministers have already told employers not to follow the existing rules as the draft law goes through the parliament.
And we've set out.
In some change of power, Paetongtarn Shinawatra has become Thailand's youngest ever Prime Minister. The 37-year-old was sworn in on Sunday after she accepted the King's command to form a government. Now, Paetongtarn Shinawatra was royally endorsed as the nation's new Prime Minister days after Srettha Thavisin was dismissed as the Prime Minister by the Constitutional Court. As part of the royal endorsement, Paetongtarn knelt in front of a portrait of the king and then vowed to serve the nation wholeheartedly.
I'd like to thank the people of Thailand, whether you voted for me or not. I promise to serve everyone equally and wholeheartedly, every age, every gender, every diversity. Together, let's turn any challenges into opportunities, making Thailand a place where everyone can dream, create, and shape their future. Thank you.
Paetongtarn won by nearly 2/3 in a House of Representatives vote last week. She is no stranger to Thai politics, as Paetongtarn is the daughter of divisive former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. She is also the niece of Thailand's first female Prime Minister. While speaking at her first news conference, the newly elected leader said that she will continue the policies of her predecessor, Srettha Thavisin, which includes economic stimulus and reform, tackling illegal drugs, improving the country's universal healthcare system. Thailand's court dismissed Srettha over a cabinet appointment, and the judiciary ruling also came after it ordered to disband the anti-establishment Move Forward party that won last year's election over a campaign to amend a royal insult law. The court said that the campaign risks undermining the constitutional monarchy. And in the battle for presidency of Ghana, the ruling NPP is seeking third consecutive term with Vice President Mahmoudou Bouazizi as its candidate, and the opposition party NDC is planning a comeback after 8 years with former President John Mahama. Ghana will go to polls on December 6th to elect 275 members of the parliament, and the elections are being held as the West African country battles an economic crisis, making high inflation rates and unemployment the main political issue for both parties. The ruling NPP has promised creation of jobs and economic development in their election manifestos released on Sunday. The opposition party, NDC, is expected to release its manifesto on 24th of August. Despite being among West Africa's most stable democracies for over 3 decades, political stability in Ghana is under threat due to disagreement between two main political parties over the neutrality of Election Commission and the security forces. The opposition NDC has accused the ruling party of planning to rig the elections. Adding to the trouble, the outgoing president earlier said that he only wants to hand over power to an NPP president. This has raised doubts over fair elections and a peaceful transfer of power to the new government in December. And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at yowan.com.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Massive turning point in the West Asia conflict. Israel opens Iran war front. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh killed in Tehran, a targeted attack during a visit to Iran for the new president's inauguration. Nearly 2,000 kilometers away in Beirut, Israel kills a top Hezbollah commander in a targeted strike. West Asia on the boil, war clouds darken, and the threat of a wider conflict grows bigger than ever.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Hello there, this is WION World is One. We're glad you're watching. Thank you very much for joining us at this hour. Time now for Fine Print. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines. Russian Defense Ministry releases images that claim to show Russian Su-34 aircraft striking at a deployment point of Ukrainian forces and armored vehicles in the border area of Kursk region. Israeli Prime Minister meets U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, puts out public statement backing latest U.S. proposals conveyed to Hamas at the end of last week's Doha summit. Amid global efforts to seal the Gaza ceasefire deal, Iran reiterates that it will punish Israel at the appropriate time, but insists it is not seeking any escalation in the region. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch missing after luxury yacht sinks off the Sicilian capital, Palermo. A San Francisco jury had acquitted Lynch in June of fraud charges linked to the sale of his software company, Autonomy, for $11 billion in 2011. Russian President Vladimir Putin holds talks with Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev. Leaders express concern over the catastrophic shrinking of the Caspian Sea.